The entire story of the Great Age of Pirates centers around one group. Not the Yonko, not the Marines, but the Shichibukai. That's right, this whole 20-year era after Roger's death was all about them. Formed at the very beginning of the Great Age of Pirates to fight the Yonko, and finally abolished right before the Great War to end all things, as the final collapsing pillar to conclude this age, the history of the Shichibukai represents the formation of order and eventual collapse into chaos of the One Piece world. What do I mean by this? What is the significance of the rise and fall of the Shichibukai, and what does it tell us about the broader messaging of One Piece as a whole? Today we are going to piece together the full lore and meaning of the intricate rise and fall of the ultimate wildcard group in the series, the most eclectic and unpredictable organization in One Piece, filled with the widest variety of characters, with the widest variety of origins and motivations, who regularly twist the story in unexpected directions. The Shichibukai are a group that should simply never have existed, both within the world of One Piece and literally in Oda's initial vision of the story itself. This group was never in the plan, and yet we're going to break down how their conception elevated the world of One Piece to something far grander and more complex than Oda ever initially imagined. Now, before we go any further, this channel just hit the 200k subscriber milestone. Thank you all for subscribing and for your support and viewership over the years. I wanted to cap this milestone with finally rolling out some exclusive channel clothing for you all. We've got some classy One Piece inspired designs that you can wear pretty much anywhere. Everything is high quality. The sweatshirt that I'm wearing right now is very comfortable with medium heavy fabric. The t-shirts are made from 100% combed ring spun cotton with lightweight fabric designed for a premium fit. And we've got multiple options for colors for whatever your personal style is. You can get your clothing today at the Morge store for yourself or for any One Piece fan that you know this holiday season. So just hit the link in the description below to grab whatever you like from the catalog. So 22 years ago, the death of Gold Roger and the reveal of the One Piece began the Great Age of Pirates, as everyone took to the seas to try and become the next Pirate King. What's crazy about this era is that the strongest pirates who were already in the New World from before Roger's death, Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido, were all still around and would only gain more territory and influence as the era developed. However, at the same time, a whole new generation of strong and up-and-coming pirates were coming onto the scene, driven by Roger's final words. The Marines would soon be completely unable to handle the overflow of strong pirates, and so from here, it seems that the need for the Shichibukai system was born. See, there's never been any hint of a Shichibukai system existing during Rock's or Roger's eras, and all of the Shichibukai that we know of are relatively young, all of them stemming from the Great Pirate Age. None of them are from the Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido generation. Furthermore, it's explained that the Shichibukai exist to help maintain the balance against the Yonko, and the need for the Shichibukai throughout the story has specifically been emphasized to be to maintain this balance of power. Since the Emperors only really became a thing after Roger's death, it seems likely that the Shichibukai were formed in response to the Yonko. But really, it also seems that for the Marines, the creation of the Shichibukai actually took care of two birds with one stone. First, the Marines had the newfound problem of all these new generation pirates tearing through the ocean, chasing the One Piece in the wake of Roger's final words. This was a huge threat to the Marines' control of the seas. But what if the Marines could make a deal with these new pirates so that they no longer had to fight them? After all, turning enemies into allies is the easiest way to take major threats off the board. For instance, considering Mihawk's former title as the Marine Hunter, it seems that the need to remove major threats to the Marines was a very likely motivation for them creating the Shichibukai system, simply to take some enemies off the board via alliances. This was obviously extremely necessary for the Marines, as we can literally see today that as soon as the Shichibukai system was abolished and the Marines' supposed allies went back to being enemy pirates, all it took was a few former Shichibukai pooling their resources together, and immediately another Yonko Empire level threat had appeared for the Marines to contend with. that is actually already wreaking extreme havoc on their ranks. So reason number one for the Shichibukai, the Marines needed to create the Shichibukai system in large part just to save themselves from this new wave of pirates by befriending them. We can also see that throughout the Great Pirate Era, literally any time a new, fast-rising pirate threat that couldn't easily be stopped hit the scene, they would get an offer to join the Shichibukai. Hancock was offered it after literally just her first pirate campaign. Ace was offered the position only a year into his journey. Buggy was offered it as soon as he created the Buggy pirate fleet. Throughout the Great Pirate Era, with new pirate threats forming frequently, the Marines often just had to wave the white flag and offer a deal to as many fast-rising pirates as they could, to try and turn any potential major enemies into friends. But the second major goal accomplished by creating the Shichibukai system was that now the Marines actually had a clear and significant military advantage against the great pirate threats that had already existed. The Whitebeard pirates, the Big Mom pirates, the Beast pirates, these existing crews that were only growing larger into massive empires, they were now clearly outmatched by the Marines and the Shichibukai, as no individual Yonko empire could defeat the Marines and the Shichibukai together by itself. So the Shichibukai system was essentially a brilliant 2-in-1 ploy by the Marines. There are huge pirate threats that already exist, and many new pirate threats that are rapidly rising after Roger's death. What if we take the new enemies, bring them to our side, and use them to help us fight the pre-existing enemies? Like seriously, if you take a look at Roger's execution, all the major pirates that are there, Crocodile, Mihawk, Doflamingo, Moria, all of these big names that rose up as the Great Pirate Era began, were all successfully brought over to the Shichibukai. There is literally only one notable pirate who came out of this generation who did not end up joining the Shichibukai, but instead went on to become an Emperor of the Sea himself, and that is Shanks, essentially the only one to slip through the Marines' fingers. As such, taking a step back, the full history of the military conflict and how the balance of power between the pirates and the Marines formed during the Great Pirate Era is absolutely fascinating. In the era post-Rocks, what we call Roger's era, the pirate world was very fragmented and there weren't any real empires as far as we know. The Roger pirates were only ever a small group of adventurers, the Whitebeard pirates were in their fledgling stages, Kaido had been slowly finding some core loyal subordinates one by one, and so on. However, once Roger died and promised the One Piece and the Great Pirate Era began, everything became more competitive. The great pirates, Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom, expanded and turned their crews into empires that ruled the New World, which was enough for the Marines to deal with on its own. But at the same time, all these new challengers were also hitting the scene that had to be dealt with. And so the Marines made the strategic choice to offer deals to ally with these new challengers, bringing them over to their side to create a stalemate of sorts against the existing emperors. Two birds, one stone. This became the dynamic that defined the Great Pirate Era. The emperors as the great, powerful pirate force on one side, and the Marines desperately trying to snatch up any new fast-rising up-and-coming pirates over to their side, ideally preventing any new emperors. Consider the entire previous 2 decades of pirate history in this light, and the balance of the world and the trajectory of various pirate careers becomes a lot more nuanced. And if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. Now, while this strategy seemed like a winning ploy by the Marines on paper, it was in fact an extremely flawed solution in the long term. Because here's what really makes the Shichibukai so interesting. It's in fact the very same thing that the Marines all knew deep down from the start, when they made their deals. A pirate will always be a pirate. The Shichibukai are by and large not content to simply be military pieces for the Marines. They'll sign on for their own convenience, but they are still pirates at heart, and they have their own agendas and schemes that mess with the balance of the world itself, which is where most of the chaos of the One Piece world has come from. To begin with, who typically became a Shichibukai? Very often, it was characters who still fully intended to go back to competing for Pirate King and chasing the One Piece, who were simply temporarily using the Shichibukai position as a stopgap to develop their own plans. Crocodile and Moria are 2 great examples of pirates who were crushed by Yonko, realized they weren't strong enough to contend for Pirate King, and so decided to temporarily become Shichibukai to gather strength to make a run at it again. Crocodile was planning on finding and using Pluton to become Pirate King, and Moria was building a zombie army that he believed would allow him to one day defeat the Yonko. Similarly, Doflamingo had taken up a role as a Shichibukai simply out of convenience, as it allowed him to play both sides, doing deals with pirates and marines. But the entire time he fully intended to one day become Pirate King himself and take down the Celestial Dragons. Blackbeard used the Shichibukai position as a way to get into Impel Down and get a new crew, after which he went back to being a pirate and pursuing Pirate King. Even Trafalgar Law simply used the Shichibukai system to get access to Caesar's lab and break the balance of the New World, after which Law went back to being a pirate as well. Half the time the world government is signing on a Shichibukai, they don't know if they're getting someone that legitimately wants to chill and enjoy the benefits, or someone that's just using the position temporarily as a means to further their own goal towards becoming Pirate King. And that's why it was such a tumultuous and uncontrollable organization that the balance of the world ironically was built on. Consider the absolutely insane level of turnover that we've seen in the Shichibukai squad just in the last few years. Ace defeats a Shichibukai, Ace refuses to join the Shichibukai, then Crocodile turns out to be committing treason and needs to be replaced, then Jinbei quits and betrays the world government and he needs to be replaced, then Blackbeard turns out to have betrayed the world government and also needs to be replaced, then Moria needs to be replaced because he's gotten too weak and they just have to maintain standards, and then Trafalgar Law quits, and finally Doflamingo is basically publicly outed as a genocidal maniac and underworld broker, and at that point the whole system is pretty much burning to the ground. All of these pirates have played huge roles in the story and in repeatedly flipping the balance of the One Piece world over and over. What was meant to be the most valuable asset to the Marines in their war against pirates ultimately turned out to be proof that the Marines can never truly change or control pirates. Even right now, at this very moment, the absolute most obedient and loyal Shichibukai the Marines ever had, whose brain and willpower was literally removed, Bartholomew Kuma. Even he is rebelling literally as we speak. Ultimately, the fall of the Shichibukai, the collapse of the system, came from the simple nature of pirates at their core. Pirates are those who refuse to follow along with the orders of authority. And the symbolism of the Shichibukai's replacements being essentially pre-programmed, obedient clones of themselves represents the fundamental issue that divides pirates and Marines forever: the issue of free will. While a Marine will accept being a cog in a machine, to be a pirate is to be free. This is the very reason why no matter what contract a pirate may make with the government, they will always be a pirate first and foremost. And the only way for the Marines to truly have the strength of the Shichibukai on their side without dealing with their autonomy and free will was to create a version of the Shichibukai that never had those things in the first place. So all in all, the end of the Shichibukai reflects the end of an era. There is no more balance. The lines have been drawn in the sand for the final war. There are no longer any pirates playing both sides in the middle. The generation of pirates that the world government sought to control has now been let loose and stands against them. And it's fitting that all the world government has left at this point are mindless puppets that it can control. And even those are only being held onto by the thinnest of threads. Let me know if you also find the Shichibukai to be the most interesting group of characters in One Piece in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like and subscribe. And you can get my extended thoughts on some of the hidden implications of the individual Shichibukai's backstories on my weekly podcast by supporting me on Patreon. Just hit the link in the description below. And make sure to check out the new Morge clothing in the Morge store, link in the description below.